Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hi, everyone. Welcome. What a beautiful venue. Before I start the talk and while people are filing in, let me start by asking you for a favor. I want to ask you for a favor, and the favor is to do a selfie with me where you do the hugging face. You know the hugging face? We're not just a name, we're an emoji, and it's that emoji. Yeah? Are you ready? Okay. 3, 2, 1. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for playing along. Today I want to talk to you about how you can build your own AI using open source and Hugging Face. I want to tell you how, and I also want to tell you why. Oh yeah, clicker. I'll click the clicker. Thank you. Perfect. Beautiful clicker. Oh my God. Okay, so I'm going to go quite fast. If there are any questions about anything that I say, feel free to email me. I'm at jeff@hf.co. Well, let's get started. First of all, I want to give you some context about Hugging Face, the latest and greatest, and perhaps 6 things that you might not already know. And the first thing is our mission. Our mission is to democratize good machine learning. And we do this through open science, models like Bloom, Edifix, StarCoder. We do this through open source, libraries like Transformers, diffusers. Everything that we do is community driven, and everything that we do is built from ethics first principles. And speaking of ethics first principles, I want to start with that. Our approach to ethical AI is to provide the community with all the tools and best practices to implement ethical AI in your daily work. And a great resource out there for you, curated by our Society and Ethics team, is the page on hf.co/ethics, where you can find tools like to measure biases in data sets, where you can find guides to build charters for your own projects. Okay, number 3. Hugging Face today is one of the most prolific and popular open source developers. In fact, I checked yesterday, we're number 20 on the overall global leaderboard for organizations on GitHub, ranked by GitHub stars. And most of you, I assume, know Hugging Face through our main libraries, Transformers, which is how you can access all of the latest transformer models, or diffusers, how you can run stable diffusion. But there's a galaxy of open source tools for you to build your own AI, tools like Accelerate to distribute your workloads across multiple GPUs, tools like PEFT, which is how you can very efficiently fine-tune models, etc. So a lot of tools out there, and I'm only going to cover a few of them. Number 4, there are already today over 400,000 open and publicly accessible models on the Hugging Face Hub. We actually host over 1 million repositories. That's 1 million models, data sets, and AI applications that you can go and use. And these models cover any kind of machine learning. 3 years ago, transformers were really about natural language processing. How do you classify text? How do you summarize text? How do you generate text? And today, it covers every facet of machine learning. From audio, how to transcribe speech, to vision, how to recognize objects, to even domains like time series or biology and chemistry. Everything is on the Hugging Face Hub, and we have a very useful features for developers who want to get started, which is the tasks page. Instead of focusing on like which is the best model, like is Bird better than Roberta, Alberta, etc., you can really focus on what problem you want to solve using machine learning. Is it a summarization problem? Is it a speech recognition problem, etc.? Start with tasks at hf.co/tasks, and it will tell you everything that you need to know to build a prototype for this kind of machine learning problem. Okay, and number 6, so hundreds of thousands of models. All of this generates a lot of usage, and today there are over 10 million downloads happening every single day on Hugging Face by AI builders like you, accessing and using all of these great models. And by the way, these statistics are open source as well. So if you go to the space here within Hugging Face, Transformer Stats, you can find the latest for the past 30 days. All right, so these were just 6 things about Hugging Face that you might not already have known. Now I want to tell you about why you should build AI with open source. Like, okay, this is great. There's like all these libraries, there's all these models, these data sets. But why should I care? Why should I build with open source when I can just put my credit card in and use an API instead? So the first thing is that when you build your AI features and applications with open models, you're building technology that is future-proof. And here is just 3 months of progress on the Hugging Face Open Large Language Model leaderboard for some of the most used industry benchmark to see how good those models are. And you can see that just over 3 months, the pace of progress has been breathtaking. The open source community is incredibly engaged and incredibly efficient at improving, building upon each other's work to get ever better models. So if you start a project where you build upon, say, Llama 2, it's going to be very easy for you to pivot and use Mixtral instead. And then Llama 3 is going to come, and then you're going to be using Llama 3. So build with open source so that the technology that you build is something that is future-proof. The second thing is that one thing that the open source community is really, really active on is machine learning efficiency, meaning making it cheaper for you to run all these great models. And there's been so much innovation happening just over the last 6 months to make models run on smaller instances in the cloud, to make them run on your local machine, to make them run even on a smartphone. And here I have just 4 blog posts that are focused on text-to-image generation, so stable diffusion, and how you can run that really, really fast for really, really cheap, leveraging Inferentia on AWS, which is a custom accelerator, leveraging TPU on Google Cloud, which is a custom accelerator, or even run it on your laptop or on a phone with Core ML. So building with open source, you can build technology where you actually control the underlying costs. The third point, which is when you build with open models, when you build with open source your own AI, then you can host it yourself. And that's a big deal. Like if you're working at a company, like any company that has an IT department is probably going to want to host their own models. And the good news is that with open models and open source, it's really easy to do. In fact, we work with all the major clouds and platforms to make that easy for you. Of course, we have options on Hugging Face if you want to host your models dedicated with Hugging Face infrastructure, and I'll talk more about that. But we also build product experiences with Amazon Web Services, with Google Cloud, with Azure, Cloudflare, NVIDIA, IBM, Dell, to make it super easy for you guys to take those open models and host them yourself. Okay. Another reason you should build your AI with open source is because with open models, you can actually version control them. You can actually know which revision of the model you're using. You can actually build a feature that will use a model that is not going to change under your feet, which is what happens when you build upon an API. One day it works, the next day it doesn't. Thankfully, on the Hugging Face Hub, every single model is, under the hood, a GitHub repository, meaning that you have full access to its history. You know who made a change when, you know what that change can be. You can look at the difference in the files, if you're used to GitHub for building code, this is the equivalent for models and machine learning. So you have full visibility, full version control, whether those models are public or those models are private. And then one last point, why you should build your AI applications and features with open source is that these are models that you can trust because you can verify them, because you can look under the hood, because you can adapt them with your own data, right? There's a whole gradient of how open a release can be. It can be only available through API, or it can be gated like Llama 2, where you need to ask access for it. Maybe you have also access to which training data sets the model was trained on. Maybe you can actually see the evaluation results from the model. On the most open end of the spectrum, like a good example is StarCoder, which is a model that comes from the open science collaboration Big Code, Huggingface, ServiceNow, and the open source community. And with Big Code, we're able to build a model where the model checkpoints are available, the training data set, the stack is available, and we were even able to build from the ground up a consent-first mechanism so that GitHub developers can look for their username and see if they are part of the training data and can request to be out of the training data, and we update the data set accordingly. This is today sort of like the best practices, how you can build open models in a fully open way. And the result is that from this StarCoder model comes a whole galaxy, a whole ecosystem of models derived from it with slightly different training data. Maybe it's fine-tuned on SQL, etc. All right, so these were 5 reasons why you should use open source when building your own AI. It's features and apps that are future-proof. You're going to be able to switch the models to the latest and better model. It's applications where you can control your costs. It's applications where you host the models yourself. You can version control them. And you can trust and verify what's under the hood. Okay, so that was why. But now, how do you go about it? I understand there's like hundreds of thousands of models on the Hugging Face hub. How do I go about this? So the first thing is, when you're looking at a problem you want to solve with machine learning, is to find a good candidate model to go about it. And last year was all about large language models, and so we can start with that. And when you go on Hugging Face, you will find thousands, not tens of thousands of models, of large language models for text generation. And ever since the initial release of Llama by Meta, there's been an explosion of large language models that are fully open. And you might know Llama, but maybe you don't know Mixtral. Maybe you don't know the Code Llama 70 billion model that just dropped from Meta yesterday. Maybe you don't know Microsoft's Phi 2, which is much smaller and efficient. Maybe you know Mistral, but you don't know Zephyr, which is like the boosted version of Mistral. All of those are available on a Hugging Face hub. And so when you think about open models for your AI projects, you have, either on one hand, a handful of proprietary models, or on the other hand, like a galaxy of models that have been fine-tuned for particular data, particular use case, particular languages, quantized for specific performance on specific instances, etc. And by the way, here on this slide, I have color-coded the models by license. And it's very important when you look at open models to consider which license is it being published under. And in blue are all the models which are being published under a commercially permissible license. You can use it to build commercial products. And the dark ones are the ones that are usually research purposes. Okay, but now there's like thousands of open LLMs. Like, how do I go about this and find the one that's right for me? Well, we have a very popular tool on Hugging Face called the Open LLM Leaderboard. I don't have the URL here, but you can just Google it. The Open LLM Leaderboard is an application where we constantly evaluate all of these different models contributed to by the community for the most important benchmarks. And we have very easy to use filters So you can filter for the licenses that you're interested in. So you can filter for the model size. So you can filter for the kind of models. Is it a pre-trained model, an instruction fine-tuned model, a chat model? And easily find the model that you need. Okay, so now you have a model and you want to work with it, you want to improve it, fine-tune it, you want to collaborate with your team about it. One thing that's not very known is that I talked about the million repositories on Hugging Face. Half of those repositories are private repositories. You don't see them when you go on a Hugging Face hub. And that's because the hub is how teams and companies want to collaborate together to build their own AI internally. And whenever you create a model or a data set or an application on Hugging Face, you can choose for it to be public or private. So today, the Hugging Face hub is how the open source community collaborates in the open to create their own AI. And for companies that want to do the same thing internally, we have something called the Enterprise Hub, which is kind of like GitHub Enterprise for Hugging Face. And that's a great example. Writer AI, I don't know if you know them, they build amazing applications, and they're an Enterprise Hub customer to build their own models. They have great open models, by the way, Palmyra, amongst others. Okay, so you have a model and you started working with it with your team using the collaboration tools on Hugging Face. What's next? You want to deploy it. You want to deploy it in production in a way where you can control your costs and have great performances, meaning latency and throughput. And that's where our text generation inference solution comes into play. It's a code accessible solution available as a container. You can deploy it. It's fully optimized to give you the best possible performance for large language models. It's implemented support for Llama 2, for Mistral, all the latest and greatest open models. And we also built specific optimization so that if you're using an NVIDIA GPU, we can use the latest and greatest features. If you're using an AMD Instinct GPU, we also have native support for it for best throughput. If you're using a custom accelerator like AWS Inferentia, like Habana Gaudi, we have built specific support for that. So it's like your production solution for large language models. Okay, great. So now there's this solution, but I don't want to deal with infrastructure. How do I go about this? This is where Hugging Face inference endpoints come into play. Like the latest models, or actually any model that's on Hugging Face, is just a couple clicks away for you to turn that into an API you can consume in your applications. Just pick the cloud you want to deploy in for a particular model, the region, the kind of instance that you want to deploy it on, and you're good to go. And all you have to do, is to pick an instance. So if I take an example like the best model from Mistral right now that is topping the Open LLM leaderboard, that is over GPT 3.5 performances. That's Mistral, a mixture of experts model with 7 billion experts. That model is just 2 clicks away. Here, picking Amazon Web Services on an A100, it fits on 2 GPUs. That's $13 an hour. You're good to go. So remember at the beginning, I was like, okay, so when you go about building your own AI features, applications, you can either put a credit card in and use an API, or build your own technology that you host, that you control, etc. Well, it turns out it's not that much harder, right? It's just a couple of clicks to get Mistral under infrastructure and an API. Cool, you have a large language model. How do users interact with it? Well, we have an application called Hugging Chat. It's available at hf.co/chat. And it has like all the best open LLMs available, deployed, and you can use it for free today. You can use Mistral, you can use Falcon 180 billion, you can use Llama 2 70 billion, you can use Code Llama. So really easy for you to get more familiar with these open LLMs. And what is not very well known is that the application itself is also open source. And you can find it on our GitHub. It's called Chat UI. And so using text generation inference in the back end, using chat UI in the front end, you already have the contours of a full solution to build a chatbot. And there's a little cool button here. I don't know if it's a picture, but when you use Hugging Chat, you'll see that you can toggle web search on and off. And what this toggle does is it uses retrieval augmented generation to improve the context that the LLM gets when answering the user's question. And so how do I build this? How do I build retrieval augmented generation? So you already have an LLM, right? You picked it from the LLM leaderboard. You deployed it with text generation inference. Now what you need is another model, which is called an embeddings generation model, which is going to vectorize the user's question to try to find the most relevant information in your own database. And to do this, we have the little cousin of text generation inference. It's called text embeddings inference. It's a production solution for embeddings models. And just like with the Open LLM leaderboard, we have a great leaderboard for embeddings models called the NTEB leaderboard. So take the best embeddings model, put it under a text embeddings inference. You can use inference endpoints to not have to worry about infrastructure. And with Hugging Chat, you can now use retrieval augmented generation on your own company data. And again, like all this stuff is hosted in your own environment, right? So it's fully compliant, and your IT department and security officer is going to love you. Today is Developer Day at the User AI Conference. So I don't want to only talk to the Pythonistas in the room. I also want to talk to the front-end developers and the back-end developers. And I got great news for you. All the great stuff that I talked about is also available to you. So if you're building web applications, we have two great libraries for you. One is Huggingface.js, which makes it easy to interact with models that are hosted on the hub directly within a browser. And then if you want to go one step further and actually run the model within the user's browsers, we have this great library called Transformers.js, where everything runs directly within the user's browser. So it's really, really cool. And then if you're a backend developer and you're building everything with Rust, you'll be happy to know about Candle, which is our framework that is being built natively in Rust so that you can build machine learning from the ground up using Rust. All right. So I told you about how you can pick a great large language models, embeddings models, put it together into a retrieval augmented generation application. Great. So you built a great application. Congrats. Now you want to show it to the world. And that's where Spaces come into play. Spaces is a very easy way for you to host AI applications so you can show it to your users, you can show it to your customers, you can show it to your team. And there are tens of thousands of spaces on the web. So if you ever seen like on Twitter, like those funny images or these cool like portraits are generated, usually they're generated using a space on a Hugging Face. This one is illusion diffusion, where you put a mask in and the model is going to create using diffusion an image that uses it as a control net. And there are every kind of application. I told about all the different kinds of models. And we curate the most popular and trending spaces every week. So if you go to hf.co/spaces, you will see the most popular spaces at that particular week. All right, that was a lot, hopefully not overwhelming. My main message was to tell you that you can build your own AI, your own models that you can control, that you can host yourself using open source and Hugging Face. And if that is overwhelming and you need an extra hand, the good news is that we have a service for expert support. We help companies and guide them along their journey building with open source. So check that out on hf.co/support. All right, that was how to build your own AI with open source and Hugging Face. I hope I wasn't too fast. I think I could go even
What
faster.
actually is Hugging Face? It's a leading open platform for AI builders, democratizing good machine learning. But what does that actually mean? There are 3 pillars: models, datasets, and spaces. Models are the thing that actually do the AI. We host hundreds of thousands of models, including ones from major companies like Google, Microsoft, and Meta, as well as research institutions like Stanford and open source communities like Eleuther AI. Then there's datasets, openly accessible data used to train the models. And finally, spaces, which let you easily demo and showcase models. A recent example being Illusion Diffusion. All of these pillars together are combined with open source libraries like Transformers, diffusers, and Accelerate, making it easy to build, share, and use the latest AI models. All of this is free, but if you need more compute or help deploying your own models, we have that too. So if you want to be involved, go to hf.co.
Well, that was faster. And also with the acoustics, even harder to follow. Thank you so much. Have a great day.